before we can understand what's happening in the world today, the confusion, the control, the constant cycles of fear and distraction, we have to go back, all the way back, to when the 12 tribes were removed from view, their identities altered, their stories rewritten, because that's where the foundation of our modern world was set. Understanding what happened then reveals what powerful institutions are working so hard to keep hidden now, and why so many systems, education, media, health, finance, even organized religion, seem designed to keep us disoriented, disconnected, and chasing after things that don't serve us. But it all starts with a single question. What happened to the 12 tribes of Israel? Scripture makes it clear they existed. They weren't a metaphor. They weren't just a symbol. They were a people, a family, 12 sons, 12 lineages, each with a unique purpose and inheritance. So where are they now? Why is it that only one tribe, Judah, is regularly referenced in modern religion and history? And even then, what's presented often doesn't align with what Scripture actually says. When we hear the word Jew today, are we thinking about a lineage from the tribe of Judah? Or are we looking at a religious system that formed much later, one that may or may not reflect the original covenant people? And more importantly, what happened to the other 11 tribes? Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Issachar, Zebulun, Asher, Joseph, Benjamin. Did they simply vanish from the earth? Or is it possible they were scattered, renamed, and absorbed into nations where their identity was buried? If so, why don't we hear about them anymore? Scripture says the tribes would be scattered among all nations as a consequence of breaking the covenant, that they'd be taken into captivity, that they'd lose the knowledge of who they were. But if they were scattered, doesn't that mean they're still here, living among us, unaware of their origin, called by different names, wearing different labels, facing conditions they don't fully understand? And if that's true, who benefits from them staying hidden? There are prophecies about a system that would rise up and change times and laws. That would wear out the people of the Most High. That would replace truth with tradition and substitute history with narrative. Could the erasure of the 12 tribes be part of that system? Could the reshaping of timelines, religious practices, and identities have been intentional all along? Look at the world we live in. Food and health systems that leave us chronically unwell. Financial systems that trap entire populations in debt. Education systems that teach edited versions of history. Entertainment that distracts us from purpose. Spiritual systems that point us in every direction, except back to covenant. It feels less like disorder and more like design. So, what if the tribes were never truly lost, just renamed, reclassified, and removed from memory? And what if some of the people enduring the most generational hardship today are actually descendants of those very tribes? What if prophecy has been hiding in plain sight, not erased, but buried beneath centuries of systems built to keep it hidden? So maybe the real question isn't, where did the 12 tribes go? Maybe the real question is, who didn't want you to know they were ever here? In this video, we'll answer these important questions, not with opinion, but with prophecy and with pieces of history that have been buried, reframed, or conveniently forgotten. Let's start with what the scriptures say would happen to the 12 tribes. Deuteronomy 28:64, "And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other." Leviticus 26:33, "And I will scatter you among the heathen, and will draw out a sword after you." Jeremiah 31:10, "He that scattered Israel will gather him and keep him, as a shepherd does his flock." So the scattering wasn't random. It was judgment, a fulfillment of covenant consequences. The people of the Most High turned away, so they were cast among the nations. But they didn't disappear. They were just no longer called by the names we knew them by, no longer referred to as Israelites, and the world moved on as if they never existed. Where did they go? Scripture tells us the northern 10 tribes were taken by Assyria. To King 17. The king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria. They were removed from their land, assimilated, enslaved, and dispersed. Judah, some members of Levi, and Benjamin remained, but even they were later conquered by Babylon and then Rome, who destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD and wiped out what remained of the temple. In the Antiquities of the Jews, written by Flavius Josephus, a first-century priest, scholar, and historian, there are subtle traces, often overlooked, that suggest some groups of Israelites fled into the Atlas Mountains before the siege reached its peak. Then, something else happened. New religions formed, new traditions were codified, and slowly, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were replaced, first spiritually, then historically. Some scholars acknowledge that Rabbinic Judaism, as we know it today, formed not in the time of Moses, but after the Babylonian exile, deeply shaped by Babylonian customs and oral law. Likewise, early Christianity, under Rome, became a state-controlled system that fused Roman festivals, hierarchies, and politics into its worship. The true covenant people became refugees, scattered in every direction, and it's Revelation that tells us they're still here. Revelation 7. 12,000 from each tribe were sealed. That's 144,000, named by tribe. But modern theology doesn't seem to know where those tribes are, or worse, chooses not to. Revelation 2:9. I know the blasphemy of them, which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. This isn't a commentary on any modern group's ethnicity. It's a prophetic warning that identity theft would happen, that some would claim the inheritance, while the Most High's people were scattered, hidden, suffering. So who are the true tribes? Let's look at the trails. When millions of West Africans were enslaved and shipped across the Atlantic, early slave records from Portugal and Spain described some as Hebrews. These weren't just tribal Africans, they were people living by different customs, languages, and spiritual codes. In 1747, language comparison charts were made, showing Negro and Hebrew dialect matches. Then there's 2 Esdras 13:40-46, removed from most Bibles. Those are the 10 tribes who were carried away and entered into another land where never mankind dwelt. Many believe this refers to the Americas. So now we have 2 large movements. Tribes taken westward into slavery and poverty. Tribes who fled eastward, northward, or to distant lands to preserve their customs. And in both cases, they were renamed African American, Afro-Caribbean, Indigenous, Latino, Aboriginal, slave caste, lower class, untouchables, any name but Israelite. Their heritage was erased, their holy days replaced, their God hidden under layers of confusion and rebranding. And now, we live in a world built on systems meant to keep that truth buried. Education that leaves out entire chapters of history, religion that ignores entire prophecies, media that distracts, economics that enslave, medicine and food that keeps us unwell, technology that tracks but doesn't heal, faith systems that preach prosperity but never truth. So what happened to the 12 tribes? They were scattered, they were renamed, they were hidden, but there will always be fingerprints of truth left, for those who seek it. Like and subscribe to join us as we pull back the layers of chaos and confusion. We'll ask the questions boldly and patiently so that together we may uncover the small fingerprints of truth left behind for those with eyes to see.